You have several high-ranking members in Congress who have come out and said, tariffs are not good for the American people, not good for the American consumer. Tariffs don't make good policy, and I think are quite keen to bring back power to Congress for Congress to exactly exert their tariff authority.
Donald Trump announced a blanket 15% tariff increase on imports worldwide. He did that just one day after a US Supreme Court decision struck down his plans for sweeping import taxes. The US president invoked a never-before-used law known as Section 122, which gives Trump the power to put in place tariffs up to a maximum of 15% for 150 days, at which point Congress must step in. Well, I've got with me Emmanuel Adam, Chief Trade and Policy Officer and an Executive Director at British American Business, which incorporates a Chamber of Commerce representing US business in the UK. Thank you very much for joining me, Emmanuel.
Good afternoon.
So tell me about the instability of these last few days, the ups and downs of the US Supreme Court decision and Donald Trump's response.
Well, thank you, Danny, for having me on the program. I mean, of course, there is a huge instability right now. We have just had the Supreme Court rule against one set of tariffs, and then a moment later, the president has announced another set of tariffs that may also precede another set of tariffs yet again. So that means that we are in a road right now. We just don't know anymore what is going to be the landing zone in a few days or few weeks or few months from now. And I think that is now something that we all have to price into our everyday working.
Can I just ask, before talking about the effect of that pricing on everybody who buys or works for American businesses, what does the White House and Congress and the American right in general, which had previously been pretty pro-free trade, what's their response to you saying to them, look at the instability and the impact it has on our businesses?
That's a good question. And it is fair to say that Congress is skeptical of what is currently going on. I mean, you have several high-ranking members in Congress who have come out and said, tariffs are not good for the American people, not good for the American consumer. Tariffs don't make good policy, and I think are quite keen to bring back power to Congress for Congress to exactly exert their tariff authority. Why we haven't seen yet, I think that is a very complicated political situation that finds its roots in why President Trump was elected in the first place. But I think there is a movement for Congress to bring power back into the parliament.
So give us some idea of scale here. So obviously businesses make a lot of decisions, take a lot of risk, deal with a lot of uncertainty. How important are these tariff changes and the tariffs themselves compared to all the other risks and decisions that you have to make?
It definitely makes it very complicated because it changes constantly and it adds a very significant cost to your everyday business. I mean, just imagine if you are a UK producer of kids' toys or jumpers or whatnot, and you're used to shipping a significant amount of goods to the US. If you add a specific tariff rate on top of it, that adds to your cost. But also, if you don't know exactly what that tariff rate is going to be tomorrow, in a few weeks, in a few months from now, how do you negotiate pricing contracts with your customers and so forth? So it definitely has an impact. We haven't seen a massive impact on businesses going out of business or something yet, but it definitely dampens the prospects for growth.
Of course, there are some businesses who say, American businesses who say, well, yes, we welcome this protection. I can understand why why exporting American businesses feel a bit more conflicted about it. But those people who are catering primarily to the domestic market, some of them were, a bit disappointed with the Supreme Court. They seem to side with the president there. So your members, I suppose, might have a conflicted view.
So I think it's not really conflicted, because when you look at the industries that are currently being protected by those tariffs, there are only really a few. And don't get me wrong. I mean, there's always a reason for why a country, a government would want to protect certain industries. The question is the scale here. Right now, when you think about some of those industries, steel, for example, steel producing industries, steel per ton right now in the US cost almost double of what it would have cost in the world market. That might be great for that industry, but it's not great for the rest of the economy because everyone else has to buy now steel at a higher price, which leads then to higher input costs, which then leads to higher construction and product costs. So it's the question of scale here. If you protect one tiny piece of the economy, what is the impact for the rest of the economy?
What tariffs are you expecting once the temporary period is over and 150 days you're going to have new proposals? What do you think they'll be?
So that is a very good question. So right now I mean, to a certain degree, that the Section 22 tariffs that you have mentioned will be in place until July 24th. The government has said in the meantime they would launch a number of so-called 301 and 232 investigations, which are other acts that the government can use to impose tariffs on foreign nations. We will see, I think, quite a number of those. Which will then target specific countries and or specific products. What I don't see after those 150 days is a global tariff, such as the one that we now have in place, because that is meant to expire after 150 days unless Congress is acting. But as I mentioned in my first answer to your question, I'm not sure whether Congress would want to essentially make those 15% global tariffs permanent.